What is up, YouTube? In this video, I'm going to be talking about some of the things that I wish I knew before I started medical school. So for all the incoming medical students and recently started medical students, I feel like this video will definitely be very helpful to you. So allow me to share some of the knowledge and wisdom I have gained over the numerous mistakes that I've made in medical school so that you don't have to make those mistakes. All right, so the first thing that I wish I knew when I first started medical school is just that you need to have a structured schedule. And that means you need to really plan out your time for studying and for time just to make sure you get everything done. When you start medical school, you'll find out that the curriculum is very fast paced and it's really easy to get left behind in it. Try to schedule out time blocks where you actually have time to study everything that you need to. In my school, we would have lecture from 8 a.m. till about noon. And then after that, for the most part, our afternoons would be free, except some days we would have some afternoon activities. But besides that, our afternoons are pretty much free. So something I wish that I did was really schedule out hour by hour what I want to focus on during the afternoons. Because if you don't do that, it's really easy to just get so caught up in one lecture that you had that morning that you don't have time to study the other one. So what I would have done differently was just make sure I had structure. Helps to not get overwhelmed by everything that you have to do. So for instance, if I created, let's say at from 1 p.m. till 2 p.m., I'm going to study lecture about, DNA or whatever. Let's say we're doing biochemistry about DNA. And then, from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., I'll study a different lecture. And this way, I'm not going to get overwhelmed because each lecture in medical school is like 100 PowerPoint pages long. It's just full of tons of information. So if you don't really tell yourself, I need to study this lecture here, this one here, it's really easy to just kind of get overwhelmed. And create a structured schedule, and you're definitely going to find yourself more productive and less stressed. So this next thing that I wish I knew is kind of related to the last point, and that is you want to make sure that you still maintain a balanced lifestyle. And I know that that's really hard when you go to medical school because, let's be honest, medical school and balanced lifestyle don't really kind of go together. That's actually exactly why you need to do it. I actually found out that when I started to be a little bit more balanced in my lifestyle, which means like going to the gym, taking time for myself, and not just studying only. I actually found that I not only felt better, but I also did better in school. So what I would say is like the ideal, I guess, like ratio or percentage would be like 80% should your time should go to like school, and like around 20% of your time should go towards like yourself and your own well-being. And for me, that 20% was kind of split up 10% for going to the gym, exercising, and just staying physically healthy. And then another 10% where it's just like, I can just relax, I can watch YouTube videos, I can just, kind of chill out. So yeah, I wish I started earlier on in medical school, just actually treating myself properly, treating myself well, making sure I took care of my physical health as well as my mental health. You will find that medical school can be very draining, so you need to make sure you have ways to just kind of get away from it when you need to. And you want to be able to stay physically healthy because, your mind and body are connected. So I found that by working out and staying healthy physically, it helps me mentally to stay healthy. Also, another benefit to working out is that after I worked out, I felt that I had more energy to study too. But you're actually benefiting yourself the most if you take care of your health, because taking care of your health means you're going to take care of your grades too. All right, this one is actually a really important thing that I wish I knew before I started medical school. And that is to not use every resource out there. There are so many resources out there to learn medicine. There's so many resources for medical students that it is really easy to get overwhelmed. And you kind of feel like when you have all these resources, since you paid for them, it's like, well, I better use them because you don't want to waste the money that you spent on them. But actually, like when you have this many resources, it just stresses you out. I was stressed out by all the resources that I had, and I really just wish that I focused on one or two resources that I just put all my energy and effort into. Because I feel like it's more productive to just finish a resource completely than trying to go from this resource to this resource to this resource. For me, I mean, I got all of them pretty much. Like I got, Pathoma, I got Sketchy, get Boards and Beyond, you get Amboss, UWorld, Osmosis. I mean, there's so many different ones out there that there's no way that you're going to be able to finish them. So you just pick like, one or two that you feel like would work well with you, and really just make sure that you do those really well. Like go 100% in to those resources. Definitely make sure that you have like UWorld and like a question bank. So Amboss or UWorld is great because they have question banks, but you also want to make sure that you have like maybe one or two for learning the material. But I would not go any more than that. Just make sure you have, UWorld or Amboss for question bank, and then make sure that you have, like Sketchy or Pathoma, but don't go get all of them. Find the ones that you feel like will suit you best and just stick to those, and you'll be saving money, and you'll definitely be a lot happier and less stressed than if you had every single one of them. All right, another thing I wish I knew was just that you don't need to feel embarrassed to look up words. What I mean by that is there's a lot of words in medical school that you don't know, but medical school doesn't really teach you what it means. Like for instance, like maybe you're reading one of the PowerPoints and they say like, patient presents with hemoptysis or something, and they don't even explain what hemoptysis is. It's kind of like they just expect you to know it. Just look it up. It takes like half a second just to Google what it means. Just type in hemoptysis into Google and it pops up, and it's like, oh, okay, blood and coughing with blood and stuff. And you go, oh, makes sense. And now you know it. There's no need to be embarrassed to just have to look up things. I mean, I looked up every word like for years. It's like I should have known these words by now. I should have known what this meant, but I kept on having to look it up until finally it stuck. So don't feel embarrassed about having to do that, because I think that that's completely normal and it's the fastest way to learn. So another thing that I wish I did when I first started medical school was to really do more of an active type of studying. So when I first started, I was just trying to keep up. I was just trying to survive medical school. They would be putting out PowerPoint after PowerPoint after PowerPoint. And eventually, each quiz was like thousands of slides worth of stuff. So I was just really stressed. I was like, okay, all I got to do is I just have to study every single slide. If I read every slide, I should be good. And you think that that's the way to do it, but it's really not the way to do it. So what actually works best, at least for me, what worked best was focusing on active studying. And what I mean by active studying is writing out your own notes and also like quizzing yourself actively, because there's so much stuff that you have to remember. You have to make sure that you are able to recall it without any sort of context. So what I would do is when I go through a PowerPoint, instead of just focusing on like, oh, I need to read every single line, as long as I read every line, I'm good. Changing from that mentality to one of like, okay, when I'm going through here, what is like the most important information? Let me try to make sure I remember that. So maybe I'm going to write it out on like a whiteboard or something, or write it down on some notes, or write it down on the iPad, and really just try and make sure I remember it. And then I'd quiz myself on the PowerPoint to make sure that I remembered it. If you use this approach, you'll find that you're able to retain a lot more information than if you just thought that reading through the PowerPoints was enough, because it's not. You need to really force your brain to remember it. You need to really just burn it into your memory. And this kind of goes with my next point. I wish that I knew to use Anki from the beginning. I'm sure that all of you have heard about Anki by now, but for those of you who haven't, basically Anki is just like a flashcard app. You can get it on your phone and you can actually get it on your computer, and there are pre-made decks available for all types of subjects in medical school, and it's a great way to get spaced repetition in. For me, Anki actually worked really well when I started using it, but I didn't start using it until like halfway through my second year. And the main reason was because I was so intimidated by Anki. Anki has, so many cards, and it's not necessarily user friendly. I was always intimidated about using Anki. When I finally got around to learning how to use it, I was like, wow, I really wish that I used this. All right, and the last thing that I wish I knew before starting medical school is that, now this one's a little bit more silly, but it's actually that medical school really just feels like high school all over again. This was definitely something I was not expecting when I went to medical school. I really thought that, it's going to be much more sophisticated and stuff, and I guess in the way that we all interacted with each other. But what it turned out to be is that everyone seemed to just kind of like find their clique, and then just like stick with their group. And it was just like, I just felt like a very high school vibe again. I mean, given the class size and stuff, everyone just kind of found their own group, and, and then there was gossip and stuff, and gossip in group me, and just stuff like that. It just felt very high schooly. So that was something I wasn't really expecting before I started medical school. Yeah, I hope that some of these tips were helpful to you guys. Let me know in the comments down below if there's any other video ideas that I can do, and any ways I can make these videos more helpful to you all. If you haven't already, please make sure that you subscribe and you smash that like button, and I will be back with more videos in the future, so I will catch you guys later.